Liberty Nation. Truth is making a comeback.
Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation's Liberty Nation TV. I'm your host for today, Mark Angelides, and I'm joined by the incomparable Mr. Jeff Charles to discuss a subject that I'm sure many of us hold dear: the idiocy and intellectual dishonesty of the establishment media. Now, Jeff recently wrote an article on Liberty Nation titled "The Establishment Media Backfires," in which he covers how spectacularly badly that the complicit media played their hand with the alleged whole country's comment from Donald Trump. So, firstly, thank you for being here, Jeff. And secondly, can you tell us a little bit about where groups like CNN, NBC, and their ilk, where they went wrong?
Yeah, and thanks for having me. So, where they went wrong is it's really where they always go wrong. So we all remember the comments that President Trump allegedly made about Haiti and about African nations and receiving immigrants from those countries. He referred to them using a pejorative term, calling them old countries. And at least this is what has been reported. We don't yet know if he actually used the words or not. Yeah. But since these allegations came out, the media basically lost their collective minds. They went crazy with it, just like they do anytime he sneezes. So basically, when they took the story, ran with it, and constantly used the word on the air, which is not something that we normally see. You don't normally see people like Andrew Cuomo saying the S word on national television.
Yeah, we have a watershed in our country where you're not allowed any of this language before, I think it's 9 p.m. or something.
Yeah, we have. I think we have something similar, but you're definitely not supposed to hear it on the news with a journalist using the actual word. I mean, in one segment, I can't remember whether it was Chris. It wasn't Andrew Cuomo, Chris Cuomo. I'm getting my Cuomos mixed up, but
that's the man, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
He probably said it too.
Yeah, he probably said it too, and in private. So I think I might be right about that. But in one segment, he even wrote the word out on a board to illustrate what the president was alleged to have said. So they said this over and over and over again, and it just came out that the FCC received complaints about the word, not about President Trump's alleged use of the word, but the fact that they kept saying it on the news programs. Yeah, they received a little over 160 complaints about CNN, NBC, and the others using that word. CNN got the most complaints, which shouldn't be a shocker to anybody.
No, it's just what the complaints are for this time, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so if you're, I mean, to the viewers at home, if you're watching this Liberty Nation TV, then chances are you have at least a minor mistrust of what the establishment media are selling. So, Jeff, have they spent their trust collateral, or is there a hope that they could once again be a valued institution? What do you think?
I think the answer to both of those questions is yes. They have spent their trust collateral. They've been doing it for decades, but it's been on full display now. Their bias has been a lot stronger, especially with Trump running for president, than it has before. So I think what happened is that a lot of the American public woke up. They make two major mistakes when it comes to Trump. One, they're obviously biased. Yeah. They show this. They don't really even try to hide it as much as they used to. So the American public has seen that. The second mistake is that they go crazy whenever Trump does something. And the funny thing about it is that there are things that Trump says that is worthy of criticism. I can, as a Republican, I can admit that. There are plenty of things that he says, the things that he tweets, the way he says things. Sometimes it is worthy of criticism. The problem is that they don't respond to that in the same, it's always a disproportionate response. So if he tweets something about Little Rocket Man, they don't just say, oh, the president shouldn't be tweeting stuff like that, yada, yada, yada. They don't give measured criticism. They go, oh my gosh, he's leading us into nuclear war. We're all going to die. And it's like Chicken Little saying that the sky is falling. And the American public sees that, and they, whether it's subconsciously or fully consciously, they see the media overreact every single time, which is why Trump can get away with saying a lot of the stuff that he does.
Yeah, it's like they're almost like children, aren't they? And it's, oh my God, Mom, you won't believe what he did to me.
Exactly. Yeah, they're like bratty teenage girls, and they're very dramatic. And the thing is, they can get the trust back if they wanted to. They can be a valued institution. It would require them to go back to being actual journalists who report the facts instead of being a political advocacy group.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned about bias, because my next question is actually ties into Andrew Breitbart, but I'm reminded of something. I think it was Andrew Breitbart who said that when he looked back at Walter Cronkite, who he originally, in his younger days, he thought, well, this is a measured and unbiased journalist. But he looks back at it now and sees that Walter Cronkite was, in fact, in his opinion, was laying the groundwork for a shift from a more right-leaning conservative United States to a more left-leaning progressive United States. So as you say, the bias and perhaps the intellectual dishonesty has been around for a very long time.
Yes.
But back to my question about Andrew Breitbart. So he often referred to the democratic media complex. Now this was it's an ignoble title. To me, it seems to sum up what we're seeing. And it's not just in the US, this is in the UK too. There appears to be a set of rules for reporting that the public aren't privy to. And neither, of course, are other news sources like ourselves or what the left would call the alternative media. I mean, my question is, without getting too conspiratorial, who designed, who wrote, and who signed off on the agenda? I mean, it's too pervasive and too ever-present to be organic consequence. So who do you see as behind it over there on the grassy knoll with Elvis?
I have no idea. I've thought about this myself. Are there people in a smoke-filled room dictating what type of reporting is going to happen over all of the left-leaning establishment media outlets? Yeah. A lot of us like to blame George Soros because that's one of our favorite targets. And I have no doubt that he has some involvement in this. But I think I liken it more to what we say about the deep state. I don't think it's an actual concerted effort where they all get together and say, this is what we're going to report. This is how we're going to report it. I think it's organic in that all of these outlets are run by leftists, not just regular liberals, but people who have gone so far to the left that this is the natural result of that if they're not engaging in actual factual reporting. So if they're not doing that and they're going to be reporting in a biased way, and they're all not left-leaning, but full-out leftists, this is the natural organic result of that. So I don't know that it's an actual organized conspiracy. It's just something that is happening because of, one, who owns these media outlets, and also the fact that they have basically given up on actual journalism.
I would say that that's a good answer that's pulled me back from the brink, Jeff. Thank you. So,
I'm glad I can help.
So Trump is possibly the biggest target they've ever had. And they work in concert to try and bring him down. But they fail. And they fail again and again. They just keep failing. And hopefully they'll continue to fail. But why is this? Why do they keep failing so spectacularly with this?
Yeah, I want to touch on something you said. You said Trump is their biggest target. Now, I'm going to push back on that a little bit, because Trump is really like any other Republican president. If you look at his policies, it's not that different. Now, his manner and his personality is distinctly different, but Trump is not their biggest target. Trump is their biggest challenge. They have never had to deal with this before. In the history of the establishment media, they have never dealt with a Republican politician, period, who was willing to go toe-to-toe with them. They've never dealt with a Republican who was willing to call them out and to push back against them. And actually, it was interesting in the 2012 Republican primaries, we saw a little bit of this with Newt Gingrich, and it was something that was noticed. And I think that he kind of, in a sense, kind of paved the way for that, because during the Republican debates, Newt Gingrich attacked the media constantly. And as a Republican, and what I heard other Republicans say, they loved it. They ate it up. Obviously, he didn't get the nomination, but that's what people remember about him from those primaries. He was willing to call them out to their face for their bias. So I think for the media right now, Donald Trump does so on steroids. He goes toe-to-toe with them. And a lot of times, a lot of the attacks he even makes against them aren't even necessarily right. I would say most of them are, but he's willing to say, you're fake news, you're fake news, you're fake news. And they don't know what to do with that. It's like the classic case of a bully not knowing what to do when his prey actually decides to fight back. And I think that's what we're seeing here. He is the biggest challenge that they've ever had. And I actually, even though I disagree with Trump on certain things, I hope that he continues to do that. And I hope that other Republican politicians do the same thing, because just like a politician deserves to get called out when they do or say something that's wrong, the media isn't any different. They don't need to be put on a pedestal. They're not gods. If they do something wrong or they continually engage in a behavior that hurts the American public, they deserve to get called out on that every single time.
I think that is the best and most thoughtful answer I've heard on this, Jeff. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you for your insight on this topic, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you at home who took the time to join us here. Now, you can read Jeff's article on site. You can check out podcasts, radio, and more videos over at libertynation.com. You can leave us a comment below and a thumbs up, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Liberty Nation. News and commentary, minus the propaganda. libertynation.com